Now to Iran and its moves in Iraq. This as the Iranian Resistance warns about Tehran's ultimate intentions.
It is abundantly clear that the mullah's regime is after the nuclear bomb. Thus, we are demanding an end to the nuclear program. I'm saying this on behalf of the Iranian resistance and on behalf of the Iranian people.
Well, the leading Iranian opposition group, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, held a massive rally Friday outside of Paris, calling for regime change in Iran. Tens of thousands gathered there, also demanding that Iran be stopped in trying to spread its brand of extreme fundamentalism in Syria and Iraq at the expense, they say, of the U.S. and our allies. And they also accuse Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki of acting on behalf of Tehran. The leader of the group, Maryam Rajavi, calls al-Maliki, quote, Iranian operative. She sat down for an exclusive Fox News interview, her first American television interview, and she told us it now appears that the upcoming nuclear deal on July 20th will permit Iran to continue to enrich uranium, despite that being a violation of 6 United Nations Security Council resolutions. And she warns if Iran is officially given that right next month, the result, she says, will be a nuclear bomb.
We hope that in these negotiations, the international community would succeed in halting the Iranian regime's advances and ambitions, because halting the bomb-making of the mullahs is what we, the Iranian resistance and the Iranian people, want. Regrettably, however, the direction of the talks does not show such a thing.
Well, Iran claims it only wants nuclear capability for electricity. One official who appeared at the rally and is associated with the group, Ambassador John Bolton, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and a Fox News contributor. Ambassador, you know, President Obama announced that the U.S. is giving the Syrian opposition $500 million. So why doesn't the administration do the same for the Iranian opposition?
Well, given that Obama is strategically completely at sea, it wouldn't surprise me if he were to ask for something like that. You know, he's requested this $500 million from Congress. Who knows when it will be appropriated or when the resources might actually start to flow to the opposition. But the circumstances are very confused. And I must say, as much as we worry, and with good reason, about ISIS and its terrorist capabilities, we need also to worry about, in any respect, strengthening Iran or its surrogates, the al-Maliki regime in Iran or the Assad regime in Syria. So I wouldn't provide these forces any assistance one way or the other, because we can't tell whether the weapons we might give to moderate Syrians would end up in the hands of ISIS. That aid that we would give to the al-Maliki government in Iraq might ultimately benefit the Iranians.
Yeah, and speaking of the al-Maliki government, Mrs. Rajavi not only called him an Iranian operative, but says that he's running a puppet government on behalf of Tehran. You think that's true?
Well, I think he's clearly under the influence of Tehran and has been for some time. And let's be clear, one of the reasons this sectarian fighting is going on in Iraq today is because of the oppression of the al-Maliki government against the Sunnis. And I think that's another reason we have to be cautious about assuming that the people who are fighting against al-Maliki are all ISIS terrorists. I think Sunni tribal forces are in the field. I think ex-Ba'ath Party elements are in the field. Sunnis that fought with us in the surge just 8 years ago. So this is a very complicated environment inside Iraq, and it's made more complicated by the fact that our forces withdrew 3 years ago. Our intelligence is minimal. That's really what these 300 American advisors, so-called, are being sent in to find out what is going on the ground. And I think that...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry. The key point is not to aid Iran in its continuing efforts to maintain hegemony in the al-Maliki regime or whoever succeeds him.
Yeah, I apologize. I was going to mention, while we're fighting that explosive front, July 20th, the nuclear agreement, do you think Mr. Rajavi's concern that giving Iran the right to enrich uranium is extremely troublesome, and that could lead to a nuclear bomb?
Well, it was a concession made by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council in Germany in the interim agreement that in effect, Iran has the right to continue uranium enrichment for a purely peaceful program. I don't think you can trust this regime in Tehran, and I think allowing them to continue the capability to enrich uranium means it's only a question of when Iran develops nuclear weapons. That's a regime I wouldn't trust with a spare electron, let alone a uranium enrichment program.
And Ambassador, finally, what do you think will happen on July 20th?
I think right now Maliki's in trouble, but, you know, it's the old saying here, you can't beat somebody with nobody. No alternative candidate has emerged. So I think either he gets a third term, or you could have a prolonged period of disagreement, which, of course, will further destabilize things in Iraq.
And that's Tuesday, the Parliament. But what about the ultimate Iranian nuclear issue?
Well, I think in July, when the Perm 5 meet again with Iran, the pressure that Obama will bring to make concessions so you can have a deal is going to be very intense. And that's a point I fear from the U.S. point of view. We've already made catastrophic concessions, Munich-like concessions. The president may well make more. And I think in Tehran, of course, they would only welcome that.
All right, Ambassador John Bolton, good to see you always every Sunday. Thank you so much for your insight and analysis today.
Thank you.
Well, meantime, Fox News is taking a deeper look at the complicated diplomacy between Iran and Iraq. Chris Wallace sat down with former Vice President Dick Cheney to discuss Baghdad getting that possible help from Tehran.
How do you feel about bringing Iran into the discussion about Iraq?
Bad idea. The Iranians are, in many respects, the common enemy for a lot of our friends out there. The idea that we're going to welcome Iran into solving the problem in Iraq is like bringing the Russians in to solve the problem in Ukraine.
And for a more in-depth analysis and insight, it is Fox News reporting Iraq and the rise of a terrorist state. That's tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the